We're going to record today's meeting because it's not often for folks that are involved in this program to hear from gold level cities, and we have 10 gold level cities, and so 4 are going to be presenting today. But just in conversations that I've had with folks that are in bronze and silver, indicated an appreciation to hear from those that are actually incorporating this in policy and in programs, and how this is playing out in gold level cities. So I think we want to give as much time for the presenters today to have the time. So if it's okay, we'll dispense with introductions and just dive right into the presentations. So we have Laura Mize from Excelsior Springs, Dave McCumber from the city of Grandview, and Aaron Wynn from the city of Roeland Park, and who am I forgetting? Dylan Eppert from the city of Raymore. So on the agenda, I just put it by alphabetical order by city. So in that case, we'll start with Laura. And if you have questions, just put it in chat, and I'll try to monitor the chat. And if there's a burning question, go ahead and ask it at the conclusion of Laura's presentation, or we can handle all of the questions at the conclusion of all 4 presentations. So take it away, Laura.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, I'm getting notices to admit people, so I'm going to go ahead and do that while that's popping up here.
Laura, I'll take care of admitting people.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you again, Kathy, for giving me another opportunity to share what the City of Excelsior Springs has been doing, our Community for All Ages journey. I came in on it after it had already started. It started in 2017. That was an excellent way to learn about the city by reviewing what had happened in the bronze and silver level as we were working toward gold. So I'm happy to share with you today what we've done. So the idea of being a community for all ages has been embraced by our elected officials and our staff, and using the age lens as we look at policy and programs is becoming an easier habit. Of course, the ability lens is also critical when considering services. And our Parks and Recreation Department, we used their strategic plan that was approved by their board in 2021 as our qualifying policy for the gold application. And that set their goals for their next 5 years. They used a comprehensive community survey to gather data from residents in town and wanted to know how they used the various parks and rec amenities, what they wanted to see, what gaps needed to be filled. So then the Parks Board used that data to evaluate their strengths and weaknesses and create a plan that would meet the needs of all ages and abilities in the areas of recreation, wellness, and fitness. So this photo here is from our Rainbow Splash Park, which is our new splash pad. And we're really excited that that was able to be open all summer this year for lots of people to enjoy, whether you're on wheels or on feet or crawling, you could get wet and cool off. So we are very excited to be recognized as a gold level recipient. And I think the motto is just, it's simple, but it's just perfect. We want to be a great place for people to live and age well. So even though we use the Parks and Rec strategic plan as a focus for our application for gold, we're working to apply the age lens to all aspects of policy and decision making. This is a photo of our community center. And the community center is kind of the heart of where a lot of our service to different age groups happens. And it's kind of the hand and heart of our work for communities for all ages. The community center is the crown jewel of the Parks and Rec department. It's the home for our senior center, and it houses the facilities that many seniors use for wellness and fitness and social interaction. The center was designed for ages 0 to 102 in mind. There's a child watch department that cares for the littlest visitors while their parents can exercise. Every second grader in Excelsior Springs is taught to swim at our community center pool. And our center meets all ADA requirements, and it is a home for various clubs and groups to have a place to meet as well. It's a vital place for seniors to combat isolation and receive a meal. So at our senior center, we have the senior lunch provided for in Great Park by Mark. It helps to support that tremendously. We have a staff member who's dedicated only to the senior center program. And he likes to use that time as to its fullest and brings in guest speakers who offer programming to educate and encourage those who attend the senior lunch. There are also health screenings offered at the community center, in the senior center as well, health screenings and mental health screenings. Guest speakers include physicians and staff from the hospital and representatives from various nonprofits who come and give presentations to help seniors be aware of what's available to them. A popular guest speaker that they had recently was a fraud prevention specialist, and he had lots of good questions and good interaction for the people attending the lunch that day. So the photo here on the right is my favorite photo in this whole presentation. It shows an intergenerational moment at the community center where the gentleman in the wheelchair is a dear neighbor and friend to City Hall, lives just down the block from City Hall. And so he has served on various boards throughout the decades of his residency in Excelsior Springs. And we see here, he was able to get to the community center. He lives on the east side of Excelsior Springs, was able to get to the community center on the west side of town. Excelsior Springs is divided by right down the middle, by some very rough terrain and high hills and railroad tracks. So without our transportation department, it would be really difficult for people to get from one side of town to the other unless they drive. So I'm thankful that he had a place to interact with different generations there at our community center. So our Parks and Recreation Department is proud of their walking trail system that moves throughout downtown, and there's a trail system on the west side of town as well. Our green spaces include various parks and playgrounds, and our Rotary Club has placed benches along many of the trails in different parks for resting places along. Some of our different park offerings, our Get Fit Park features strength and coordination challenges, and it has unique equipment that's designed specifically for fitness and strength training. Our Rainbow Splash Park, like I mentioned a moment ago, is tremendous for kids on wheels, babies, grandmas. Everybody can enjoy getting cooled off in the water at the splash park. So we're really proud of that. And of course, fitness isn't just for humans. We have the Century Dog Park that features play elements for dogs and a fenced-in area where they can play while their owners visit. We have a tremendous local love story that started at the dog park. Two dog lovers met there and they ended up having their wedding at the dog park. So we're thankful to have that as well. One of the other things that our Parks and Rec department mentioned in their strategic plan that they're working toward is the Milwaukee Street Park, which will include an all-inclusive playground. Here's an example of some of the equipment that they're looking at to be able to implement on that playground. So we're just now in the fundraising stage for that park. The land is obtained and the plans are in place. We just are in the fundraising stage to get those pieces of equipment. We hope also to have a butterfly garden in that all-inclusive park on Milwaukee Street. Some of the other areas where we're implementing the age lens is in public policy. On June 7th of 2021, and again this year as well, our Mayor Sharon Powell recognized the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day with a proclamation to raise awareness about this issue. And that included write-ups in the paper and on our social media news site. Some other areas where we're using the age lens is through a Safe Streets and Sidewalks study and grant application, through our code review, and through our transportation department, and through volunteer programming. So we had a listening session about our Safe Streets and Sidewalks ideas. This is all part of application for a grant, and that process has ended in very happy news. We received the RAISE grant for our Safe Streets and Sidewalks projects. So we'll be very busy over the next couple of years getting those things implemented. But we held that listening session at the community center, and residents could voice their concerns and become educated about how that process works to get streets widened and sidewalks included near the schools. Our code review process is nearly complete. We've been working on redoing our zoning code for the past couple of years, and that's tedious, detailed, hard work to make sure it's all done well. But sometimes a situation will arise that kind of lets you know that something needs to be addressed. So we had a resident who needed to install a ramp, but he had a very small yard, and because of our setback requirements, he wouldn't have been allowed to put that ramp in. We amended our code to allow for wheelchair ramps to be installed as long as they're not closer than 5 feet to the property line. So he was able to install that into the setback. So it's those kinds of things that you can use that age lens when those things come up to help amend your code to be applicable to those situations. In our code review, we're also evaluating different policies regarding accessory dwelling units, which are instrumental to aging in place, and the Planning and Zoning Board are in the process of the final review of that code. We also, the City of Excelsior Springs supported the Universal Design Guidebook, and that's a publication that was facilitated by Mark. It offers extremely helpful guidance on how to make a space more livable to those with various ability levels. We're working on policy now that would allow for permit fee rebates if a builder includes universal design elements in a new build or a remodel. In December of 2021, we adopted the 2018 building codes. Building codes aren't just for making buildings safer for the current generation, but they set a standard of quality construction for generations to come. So the City of Excelsior Springs has 2 opportunity zones, which offer tax incentives to investors who invest in our community through a qualified opportunity fund. We also have Chapter 353 tax abatement program for property owners in the tax abatement district. And that district encompasses our historic districts as well. Some of their homes there are over 100 years old. So, and we have a lot of older folks who live in that area of town who've been there their whole lives. So this 353 tax abatement allows them to make improvements to their home, reduced in their property taxes. Our Elms Historic District was just recently added to that 353 tax abatement district. And it's another neighborhood where the homes are 100 years old, right there around the Elms Hotel. So that tax abatement program is a tool that helps make improvements to a home much more affordable for those homeowners. Our transportation department is a valuable service that we're very proud of. We have a specialized bus that runs a regular route to grocery stores and through downtown, connecting the east and west sides of town, which are divided by rough terrain and railroad tracks. And another vehicle offers transportation to medical appointments as well. So volunteerism makes any community a better place. Our Neighbors Helping Neighbors program is in place to partner willing hands with those who need assistance with minor home maintenance and yard tasks like mowing or raking or shoveling. We're thankful for our great partnerships, and this is what really makes all of this work well. We benefit from having established partners. The Good Samaritan Center is a local nonprofit that's been around for a long time. They provide food and assistance, counseling and classes, and connection to different resources for those in need in our community. Of course, our partnership with Mark is just invaluable to us. They support our senior center. Kathy walked us through the process of assessing our services and policies through our silver level. And our participation in the Communities for All Ages program helped us develop that habit of implementing and constantly thinking about that age lens in everything that we do. Clay County Senior Services has been a valuable partner as well, and they were a major contributor to our senior center, and they also support the staff at the senior center. They support the Good Samaritan Center also, and they assist with home care and home repairs, and they support our transportation program. So like I said, I wasn't around at the beginning of this journey. There are a bunch of names here of folks who have helped to champion this. And I think we were talking about this a little bit before the meeting started, that some cities, when the champion leaves, the program kind of gets put on the back burner. But we've really been blessed here in Excelsior Springs to have so many people interested in this work and supporting it in different ways. So we were really thankful and excited to receive our gold level recognition for the work we've done. And we kind of see this as like a graduation. Yes, it's recognition for accomplishments, but it's also the beginning of a new way of working and thinking. So thank you again, Kathy, for giving me the opportunity to share about our journey. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has. And also make a plug for canva.com. We had a couple of comments about our presentation, and Canva is just a tremendous website and it's free for making presentations like this. So thank you, everybody.
Great, thanks, Laura. And do you mind putting the web address for that that you just referenced for the whole group in case they want to look at that? And thanks for your presentation. And I might just add to the group that Excelsior Springs gold level application was specific to their parks, their updated park plan. But although not required for the gold application, it was essentially Laura's presentation that that in the application they showed in all of the areas that are in the checklist. So those of you that have gone through the self-assessment may have recognized as Laura went through the different topics that they provided information to the review committee on how Excelsior Springs is applying the age lens to all of those topics, even though the major plan where the age lens was implemented or incorporated was the park plan. So that was very helpful to the review committee. So is there a burning question that folks would like to ask Laura now, or just put it in chat and we'll get to it at the end of all presentations? So not seeing anything in chat right now, we'll move on then to Dave in the city of Grandview.
Good morning, everybody. I'm gonna get my screen pulled up here. See if I can do this right the first time. All right. All right, do we see the slide?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, well, thanks for being on the call, and I'm happy to be able to join. And Kathy's always, you know, asking for us to help out where we can, and we're always really excited to work with Kathy. She's been amazing help with this process, and the rest of the MARC staff. You know, when I came to the city of Grandview in 2018, the staff had already here in the city had already been kind of working on the Communities for All Ages program. And at the time we were at the bronze level, and as soon as I had joined the crew here, we started working towards the silver level assessment, and that was a fun process. Our planning commission, historic preservation commission kind of linked up and formed one Communities for All Ages committee to go through that silver level process. And it was very educational, not only for those folks, but also staff as well. I think that a lot of times staff, we have so many things going on. It's difficult to see all of these things that come out in the silver level assessment because simply we're running 1,000 different directions, especially the smaller cities where staff's a little more limited. And so that process was super helpful for us to kind of get a grasp on what it was that we were dealing with here in terms of, you know, the current built environment in our city and the programs that we have and areas that we can expand on going forward. It was in that process we had started our city's comprehensive plan update, and we had decided that we were going to submit for our gold level a comprehensive plan that had our had goals listed tied from the silver level assessment into those goals in the comprehensive plan. And of course, that comprehensive plan was adopted by resolution in 2020. And then it was the winter of 2020, I believe, when we submitted our gold level application. So we'll kind of jump into it here. This is the city's, the cover of the city's comprehensive plan, Grandview 2030. in one of the first couple of pages, there's a little section here for communities for all ages, and just kind of explaining that throughout the document where you see the communities for all ages icon listed in each of the section's goals. That goal is specific to what we had found important during the silver level process and wanted to carry that in towards implementation. So throughout the document, you'll see those things kind of littered across the different sections and their goals. At the end of the comprehensive plan, there is a summary of plan goals for each of the 5 sections that we covered in detail, and you can see where those little icons show up, just as a reminder to folks that these are not just only strategies that we thought of internally, but also that really were brought to light through the CFAA process, the silver level assessment. And like I said, we wanted to see those carried forward into implementation over the next 10 years. So one of the big items that we had discussed during the silver level assessment and then moving towards gold was, like most cities, around housing and how to better achieve aging in place. In the city of Grandview, we have an older housing stock. We also have an aging population, probably not too unfamiliar with you all in the areas that you work. And we hear it regularly from citizens that there's not enough housing stock in the city when folks are ready to downsize and move out of their 4-bedroom split level or whatever type of house they have, that there isn't enough housing in Grandview for them to stay in the community, which most of them have lived here all their lives or for very long periods of time. And so they're finding other places to reside. So we knew it was important that we figure out some way. It's not a silver bullet, but some way to incrementally start implementing housing options into the community that will make that possible over the long term. So ADUs, accessory dwelling units, were very important. We also wanted to think about housing affordability. And so that also played into this. We created what's called the Town of Grandview Overlay District, which is largely on the west side of our city. If you're thinking about I-49 comes right down the center of Grandview, and there's an east and west half. So the western half is kind of the older area of the city, where you have a lot of the traditional building patterns when it comes to the residential development, where there's kind of the narrow and deep lots. They're a little bit more conducive to accessory dwelling units, these larger, somewhat larger accessory structures and rear yards and possibly a side yard because of their just general dimensions. So we kind of combined, things like allowing ADUs, reducing lot size requirements, the width, setbacks, things of that nature to kind of take that next step in adding density to these older established neighborhoods without really deteriorating at the intent of the single family kind of pattern. So we thought that this was a good way to make that next move and supply extra housing, especially for folks that maybe want to stay in the community longer. And I take calls a few times a year from folks in the city asking if they can build an ADU. And a lot of times it's because they have a family member. In some cases, it's a parent that they want to keep close to home. And so they're asking about building those ADUs. And now for the first time, we're allowing those ADUs to be constructed by right. There's no extra permissions you have to get. It's like building a detached garage in terms of the process. So you'll come meet with staff and kind of go over some of the basic rules for developing it, and then you submit your permits and they get reviewed, and if they're approved, then you're on your way. So and we did some research to kind of figure out these other cities around the country that have had ADUs in their codes for a number of years, to understand what are the things to consider when it comes to ADUs and things to avoid if we want to try and actually see these be constructed. And so there was a really good period of kind of learning as we're working on the comprehensive plan, and then eventually we'll get into our next little piece here, which is our development code. So I think we kind of created a nice, well-rounded overlay district with a lot of different things that have been introduced. That's not really unfamiliar to the building typology and development pattern of the time period of which these neighborhoods were constructed. So I think it fits in nicely. So like I mentioned, in July of 2020, we adopted the comprehensive plan, which really set that overlay district up for seeing it become a reality. The next step was moving towards our development code. So we had, after adoption of that comprehensive plan, we had submitted in that winter to CFAA, and then also there shortly after had been notified we had received that implementation level, which was huge for us. Obviously, there's a lot of smiling faces on this picture, so there were a lot of people that were involved and were excited about it. Of course, this is while we were in the middle of the pandemic, so there was kind of a limited number of folks at the time for this picture, but we did what we could. But it was definitely an exciting moment, and we just knew that it was the start of much more to come. So right after that, we started implementing those goals and strategies. So two big things. Our zoning and development code has been updated, including that overlay district that was in the comprehensive plan. And I'll show you a couple of pieces of it here in just a second. And currently right now, I've been working with the state of Missouri through DHSS, as well as Bike Walk KC, through some grant funding to create our first biking and walking strategy, which has been adopted. And now we're carrying out goals in that plan as well. We're currently working on improving wayfinding across the city, and just kind of connecting key destinations across the community. And that was a really interesting project Go Grandview was. I'll show you in just a moment. So our zoning and development code was updated, and in that process, we engaged our planning commission and other folks in the community and talked about, how can we do this overlay district and what could it look like, and presented different visuals and kind of discussed, if we're going to allow for lot sizes to be shrank down further and we're going to allow accessory dwelling units, how does that kind of stuff fit on lots? If we do infill development or if it's existing structures, and just laid out a bunch of examples, had several meetings and kind of talked about, how could land be subdivided under this new development code if someone wanted to come along and do it, and ran through a bunch of exercises. In the end, it led to the section in the development code for overlay districts, and specifically the town of Grandview overlay. And in this, we put together some examples of what people could do based off of what the regulation is telling us, and thought it really just kind of came together nicely. Pretty straightforward, not too long, something that staff could meet with a potential homeowner or builder for a meeting throughout the week, and kind of discuss this, and should be able to grasp it pretty quick and go out and do what they do best. So we're excited to see that kind of happen out in the field. Soon we're going to kind of work with communications department to kind of put it out there to the community that if they live in this specific area of the city, that this is a reality now, and to contact staff if they'd like to learn more. But we're kind of swamped with some other stuff right now, so I would have liked to got to it a little sooner, but we'll get that out there here shortly. Go Grandview walking and biking strategy was finished up late last year, or about a year ago, I guess. In that plan, staff walked every linear foot of sidewalk in the city, took an inventory just to verify where all the sidewalk was and find those gaps. Beyond that, we also wanted to look at conditions of the sidewalk. So not only gaps, but the, is there buckling or extensive cracking, is there vegetation that's covering the sidewalk? What's preventing people from being able to utilize it? When it comes to folks that may be less able-bodied, it is difficult to maneuver a sidewalk that isn't taken care of very well. And so we wanted to take that in consideration. Also, what's involved into this conditions report is not only the physical conditions, but also the experience side of things. So is this a sidewalk that is at the back of a curb on a 35-mile-an-hour signed roadway? How comfortable or uncomfortable is that walking experience? And that could really deter people from utilizing that sidewalk segment. So that kind of helps us think about, like, when we move forward and we're either rebuilding or building new, how to position walkways along street corridors. Now, sometimes you just don't have the space, and so you got to do what you have to do. But I think this kind of helped get people to understand that it's the conditions a big part of it, but also the experience of walking along a busy street, especially if vehicles are moving at high rates of speed, can deter people from getting out and exercising and doing some of those more active lifestyle activities on a daily basis. So we wanted to include that into the study as well. So it was during COVID as well, like most things have been for the last couple of years. So we had to do a lot of online surveying. We were able to do a little bit of in-person stuff, but a lot of online surveying about places where people are going right now, either bicycling or on foot, or just basically any mode outside of the automobile. And that's seen on the left. And then on the right, they were able to identify place markers around the city where there are barriers, and they left comments for each one of those. The next one on the left is existing destinations. So these are the places that people are currently going. And then there's desired destinations where people would like to go if it felt more comfortable in doing so. A little bit later in the process, we were able to go out and do some in-person events where we actually did some community walk audits and walked segments of the sidewalk system, and kind of pointed out what it was that we were looking for, and things to consider going forward when we were going out and doing these public improvement projects. And that was really insightful for folks. We had elected officials there as well as some residents. And we had really great conversations around the challenges that people face that, like I mentioned earlier, maybe are not able-bodied as some other folks are. And so we wanted to make sure that when we're thinking of, it's just not a sidewalk that some people use, this is a sidewalk that some people use that need it because this is their only means of transportation. And those folks may not be, they may need more accessibility in the system than what we currently provide. And so that was a really neat process, those few walking tours that we did. In the end, at the end of the project, there was what we called in the plan a priority network. And essentially what this is a system of connected streets that have different levels currently of sidewalk or pedestrian and bike infrastructure on it now. Some of it does not have any. But going forward, as the city improves roadways, receives grant funds through grant writing, we'll be building a network of kind of improved, advanced infrastructure that could be different forms depending on where you are in the city. The different colors on that network indicate maybe it's bike lanes, maybe it is a walking shared use path alongside the roadway, which are 10 to 12 feet wide. And there's just kind of different variations there. Now, this is just a guiding document, so it may not look exactly how it was presented here, but generally speaking, those routes will probably be pretty accurate. And these routes were based off of real world challenges out there, such as the topography and lay of the land, as well as existing right-of-way available, but also those destinations that were called out from the public earlier on in the project connecting those places together. And then the obvious one, our schools, our community centers, the public places around the city, the park systems and things like that. So that's kind of what we have working right now. And we just received, we had submitted for the grant, PSP grant at Mid-America Regional Council, and sounds positive, the application we submitted. So we're hopeful that we're going to receive the funding to start working on kind of our first segment, which is Harry Truman Drive near Truman's Marketplace, to kind of make some pedestrian and bicycle improvements along that stretch. So that's pretty exciting to kind of already see something shaping up. But this is like a lot of city plans, this is for the long game. So in 20 years, we're going to look back at this thing and see where we're at. And hopefully we say, man, we've really done a lot of this, and that's something to be proud of. What we've done so far is something to be proud of. And I was just really excited to play a small part in this work. So what's currently unfolding right now is the update to the Parks Master Plan, and our Parks Director has all this information with them, as well as including the comprehensive plan and the parks goals that were listed in there that will be built into that Parks Master Plan. And then also is aware of the Communities for All Ages strategies and what we're trying to accomplish. So they're going to build those in to their parks plan as well when they're thinking about the future of the park system. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Take any questions or after everyone else is done.
Okay, great. Dave, thank you so much. I think you can stop sharing if you'd like. So people can put questions in chat, unless there's a burning question that you want to ask right now. So just go ahead and ask. Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward then with the city of Raymore with Dylan.
Good morning. I'll get this pulled up here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for letting me have this opportunity. This is actually the first time I've ever presented for Mark. And so very excited to be able to do that. Wanted to thank Kathy for the opportunity as well. Just came on to Raymore in September of 2021. So just under a year I've been here. So I was actually not part of this Community for All Ages process, but have actually been involved with the city of Peculiar and city of Lee Summit when they were doing theirs. And so have a good grasp on what it is, but just was not part of this process. So as I go through this presentation, David Gress is also on the call. And so if there's a question that I can't answer, he should be able to help as well. But to go ahead and start, Raymore hasn't made a presentation, actually a little bit of time with Mark. And so just wanted to start off with where we're geographically located. We're just south of Grandview, Kansas City, and Lee Summit, and then east of Belton and north of Harrisonville. Approximately just under 23,000 with our population, and the percentage of just seniors is nearing that 20% mark. And so we're seeing that growth definitely expand exponentially as the years progress. And just wanted to give a little bit of an update or kind of a background look into how we started. We actually went through our growth management plan in 2013, and a lot of the things that came out of that, which was essentially our comprehensive plan, was a lot of things that Community for All Ages already did. And so in 2015, we started joining Mark with their conversations and just things going on with the Community for All Ages, but actually went through the bronze level in, I believe it was 2016, and then finished up silver and gold in 2017. So it's actually been a little while that we've had gold, and I'm very, very proud of that. Definitely keep that in mind when developers come in and trying to provide either affordability or flexibility for some of the types of things that they're trying to do for either lower income housing or just seniors in general. If you look here on the left, this is kind of our City of Raymore. We adopted this city community for all ages as just a master plan, as opposed to incorporating into a comprehensive plan or a strategic plan. And so we actually just have one document that you can go through and read that all the way through. It's about a 40-page document that just has several, background to then what came of the several conversations that we had through surveys and such, and then all the way up to our goals with implementation. Raymore's incorporating their age-friendly principles in a lot of different decision-making. It seems that it gets brought up in a lot of our different planning commission meetings and city council. It's always being thought about. And so it's very nice to see that even after, being implemented in 2017, that we're still seeing it heavily used today, as well as with going through the comprehensive plan and have been for a little while now. Just COVID was a big detriment to that. And so we've been thinking of ways of how community for all ages is going to be implemented into the comprehensive plan as opposed to just a standalone plan. We've really liked the ability to be able to just have one document as opposed to several master plans. And so anybody, whether that be a resident or a developer or just somebody maybe interested in the city, can actually just take a look at and be able to see everything at one glance, instead of, oh, well, we can send you this this master plan and it just be harder to find. One of the things that came out, which was very interesting for us, as you can see, there's 5 key focus areas. With that, seniors had the same questions or problems that they wanted solutions to that either younger adults or married couples with children had. And so the thing that came about was our parks and open green space systems, housing and neighborhood connectivity, transportation and mobility, civic engagement, and community health and well-being. And of those came 15 goals, and there was about 2 to 4 goals under each of those. And I can proudly say that we've achieved all of those as far as goals go. Several of the things that we've done to incorporate community for all ages, we've expanded the audible sound systems for major crossing intersections, allowed accessory dwelling units on all residential lots. And so that process has become a lot easier at this point, to where if somebody wants to come in and either it be multi-generational housing or just wanted to bring in some extra income for rentals, that it makes it a ton easier they can come in, get a building permit, and not have to go through an extensive process as before. Other things that we've worked on is working through transportation modes, and one of those being with the OATS bus system. Before we had funding for OATS, but increased the funding after receiving gold level for the Community for All Ages plan. Another thing that we did was trying to reach out to KCATA and getting a lot more, just ideas on how we can be more multimodal, and as well as just more friendly for residents within the city limits. We've also had a few partnerships, one with the Cass County Nonprofits Organization, where they meet every month, and we join in on those meetings to just hear those concerns that they have. A lot of those nonprofits are either church organizations or mental health organizations, those types of things. And then we've also partnered with Compass Health. They've been a huge player in our jurisdiction, just because we don't have a dedicated hospital to the city of Raymore. And so this has been a huge blessing to have, to be able to partner with them when it comes to mental health. I know that they help out our police department quite a bit, just with instead of either criminalizing a person, they can see that there's obviously some mental health issues and referring them on to Compass Health, as opposed to dealing with them in another way. We've also created a permanent Communities for All Ages committee. And if you can look in this picture here, just bottom left corner, that's actually the boardwalk that they allow fishing off the dock and things of that nature for Johnston Lake. And so that's been something that's come on just in the last couple of years and has really broadened the scope for it's called Hawkridge Park. And that's been able to walk out over the lake as opposed to just walking around it. Really adding a little bit of finesse to that park. Another thing that we've worked on and actually have completed as a pilot program for universal design. We actually partnered with a local builder, and I believe we waived all of the fees when it came to building permits, just as we wanted to be able to see what we could really do if we were to be able to implement a universal design program and incentivize that. While partnering with our local builder, education opportunities became available because it was a highly marketable home, as the public was able to walk through it before it was actually sold off to the homeowner. It was made as a spec house, and so it was able to kind of sit for a little while before it could be sold. And so this is hopefully leading to an incentivized base program where we can actually promote this for all homes instead of just the singular pilot program home. One of the things that we're trying to do now is really bring in your universal design with our comprehensive plan and trying to figure out if builders can come into us and just say, we're going to hit a certain level, having different levels where, they're going to have either, wider hallways or wider doorways, those types of things. I know that it was definitely a fun process to go through. From what I've heard, obviously I was not here during this process, but there was a lot of good feedback that we received for that. And so with that, it just solidified that we needed to expand further on the program. I mentioned a few slides back, just policy recommendations, and here's the 5 that we actually received. So, and I can proudly say that we've done all of these except for number 2, and that's adopt a universal design resolution. And I think that's going to be coming along when our comprehensive plan is actually completed. One of the interesting things about our comprehensive plan is that we're not going through any kind of consultant. It's just me and David who are doing this, and so it's taken a little bit more time just with normal workload. And so hopefully it'll be a good product after it's all said and done, but definitely has been a long haul just on top of daily work. But we amended the Unified Development Code when it came to accessory dwelling units. That's now allowed everywhere. We explored all the different opportunities to bring transit services into Raymore, and then also partnering with Compass Health and different non-for-profit organizations. There's a non-for-profit that actually goes through all of the school districts in Cass County that they provide all dental screenings and things of that nature, and then report back just on their findings. And finding that they can actually prevent further tooth decay or things of that nature, especially in lower income areas, by getting into the schools early and being able to prevent that. A lot of things that we do as well, just in community for all ages. We've had a sidewalk program that essentially has required sidewalk on both sides of the street for a number of years, and then implemented a sidewalk gap program that we review that every year, and have gotten down to a point where I think there's only 3 areas that need sidewalk gap this year. And so definitely seeing every year we're getting less and less to where there's more and more connectivity, and partnering with our parks department to just make sure that those trails actually lead to somewhere as opposed to ending unless it's at a trailhead. Wanted to briefly kind of go over our parks. This is TV Hannah. It's kind of a splash pad slash ADA all-inclusive type park. I wouldn't say fully inclusive because we have another park that will be completely all-inclusive. This is actually in just Original Town. And so we just received a national award for this park. And so that was very huge for us, and wanted to tout that. The The last one is Hawks Nest. This is, we went through the fundraising process and have finally received the funds, but have had a designated site all along. So it will be very interesting. And I think one of the, I don't want to say the first, because it's definitely taken a little bit more time to receive the funding, but one of the first all-inclusive playgrounds in the state of Missouri. And so that's definitely a big one for us. And it touts about $1 million to be able to fund that. A couple benefits of the participation for community for all ages. Just elected officials have continued to discuss this and continue to bring this up and make sure that city staff is focused on providing a community for all ages, and that is something that we take to heart with every meeting that we have. And also provide support for proposed housing developments. I would consider Raymore a bedroom community, a lot of single family homes, and within the last 5 years have really come on and brought on the more multifamily apartment type styles to bring those different housing variations and options, as well as reducing side yard setbacks and just minimum lot sizes to really try to make affordable housing for different folks to not only want to come to Raymore, but stay in Raymore. This has also led to a lot of aging in place infill developments. There's been a lot of areas or subdivisions that have not been fully built out, and there's been just, kind of piecemeal lots here and there that we've been able to work with people to be able to infill and final out some of those subdivisions that have been taking a little bit more time than what was initially anticipated. I went through that pretty fast. I talked kind of fast, and so definitely am available for any type of questions.
Great. Thank you, Dylan, for just another really excellent presentation. So I'm not seeing any questions in chat yet. So hopefully people are thinking of questions to ask. So we'll go now to Erin Wynn in Roeland Park.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Looks like we got Keith on too, so I'm sure Keith will be able to help fill in anything I miss. Okay, so in Roeland Park, the gold level activity was the implementation of a universal design incentive policy. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit, but I'm also going to touch on initiatives that we have completed both during and since then that also tie into the community for all ages gold level requirements. So today we're going to talk about the universal design incentive policy, our complete streets policy, our pedestrian and bike strategic plan, and inclusive park development. So for our universal design policy, in September 2021, Council passed this policy, which waives the cost of building permit fees for new construction or residential remodel projects that incorporate elements of accessible design, including an accessible exterior access and accessible interior spaces in the common room. So focusing on kitchen, laundry facility, bathroom, and adaptable internal stairs. During the process of researching how we wanted to incorporate universal design principles citywide, there was a lot of talk of, should we pursue a mandate? Should we require all of our new builds or remodels to incorporate accessible features? Or should we approach it as more of a carrot and give incentives to developers and builders who incorporate these features? The reality with Roeland Park is, as a 1.6 square mile city that's built out, we are seeing residential remodels, but we're not seeing a whole lot of new construction. So we decided that a good place to start, and our council and our planning commission supported this approach, was an incentive. Let's see, what is possible when we incentivize this type of design in the market. Let's see who takes advantage of it. And then it could be a proof point if we wanted to down the line require it. But I think that the consensus in our conversation was it would be more effective as a mandate if it was married with national momentum, some change in building codes and regional effort. And we wanted to be able to start earlier than that. And so we went with the incentive approach. I will say that, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, we are at the point now where we passed it, and our focus is how do we get folks to implement it? So we have the policy on our website. We reference folks to the accessible homes design guide that Mark provided. We give out information when folks apply for building permit, but we haven't seen a lot of utilization. So the work now, I think, is figuring out what are the barriers to universal design beyond just the cost of building permit fees. So more to come on that, but I think that's the focus of, we passed this policy, great first step. What do we do now to make sure that folks are actually able to use it? Our complete streets policy. So if you're not familiar, complete streets refer to roadways designed for safe and convenient travel by users of all ages and abilities. So they incorporate pedestrian safety, cyclist safety, motorists, and transit riders. All of those are components of a complete street. There's a small graphic in the bottom corner that kind of illustrates what that would look like, what it could look like. It obviously varies based on your city and your situation. So council adopted a complete streets policy in February 2022. So this actually requires the city to use the complete streets lens when designing and commencing any road construction and improvement. So laid out in the ordinance is a framework that requires careful consideration of accessibility, connectivity, and accommodation for all ages in major street projects. We're really proud of this ordinance. It was the result of a lot of work, a lot of community focus groups, bringing in consultants, working with the National Complete Streets Coalition. We're proud that we passed this ordinance, and we're proud to have gotten a high grade from the National Coalition, and think this really helps advance the goals of our city, to be a community for all ages and all abilities. The R Park Master Plan is one of our largest ongoing park projects. It's wrapping up this year. We'll also incorporate some elements in 2023, but the whole development of the plan used an inclusive lens. So we wanted this to be a gathering place for our community for all ages and abilities. So the shelters, pavilion, restroom, tennis courts, trails, playgrounds, and swings all include accessible features. We actually on Monday night approved our budget for 2023. Included in that budget is a large artistic bike play structure for kids. And one of the major focuses of that is how do we make sure that kids of all ability can use and enjoy that structure. So our next steps, I talked about this a little bit, but what we're working on now is council approved with part of our ARPA funds to partner with Habitat for Humanity in the Kansas City metro area. They have several programs that support aging in place and support affordable and accessible homeownership. So one of the focuses now is how can we make that connection between universal design and affordability? So we're looking to Habitat to help us promote a minor home repair partnership, in the community that can help folks who want to make these universal design modifications but can't afford it. There's funding available for them. So connecting the need with the resources and really tapping into our community partners, because we are not the experts on the actual construction and operationalization of this work. So we are excited to have the chance to partner with an organization like Habitat who does this really, really well and has a reputation in the city. So that's at the very beginning stages. The funding for that partnership will be effective in 2023. So this fall is focused on coming up with benchmarks, metrics, and agreements that hopefully can be replicated. And cities across the area that also have maybe some federal dollars that they need to spend and are facing similar challenges with their aging housing stock and their aging population, and how do we get creative with the resources and the partnerships that we have. The last thing I'll talk about is we are doing a zoning code update. So it's kind of a 2-year process, and we're really looking at our current code with an aging in place lens. So we want to look at what are the options that exist in Roeland Park for density, for affordability, and how can we support folks of all ages and abilities who want to live in our community. So our planning commission is getting ready to kick off that process with our consultant. And one of the things that we are going to look at, is what are our regulations and community preferences on ADUs? What can we do to add more options for density to give folks that in between of a single family home and a large multifamily? We don't really have a range in Roeland Park currently. And so what would that look like? So we're excited to engage with our community, with our elected officials, and our content experts as we pursue that update. And hopefully we'll have more exciting news to report back in the next several months as we really step into that process. That is it for the overview of our work, but I'm happy to take any questions, or Keith's still on if he wants to fill in anything that I missed.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Erin. And thanks to all 4 of you for just really excellent presentations this morning. So are there any questions? I'm not seeing any. So as people are thinking about questions, there's just a couple things that that came to my mind listening to all 4 of you that, and I think all 4 of you indicated that you weren't a part of the initial work. So I think this is just a really great way to demonstrate that when this moves toward policy and implementation, that as staff comes on after the initial work, that it stays. There has some stickiness to it. So you all are really good testaments that that it stays whether there are staff transitions or not. And Brad, before I forget, so Brad with Parkville just finished their 5th, which was the community and health services. So one of the parts that was brought out with, I think it was Dylan's, that might be a connection if you want to talk with Dylan about how they're having a more ongoing conversation with their health services community, because that was one of the topics for discussion that you all just had on Tuesday night, is how to maybe better integrate with health services organizations. So any questions or comments? And I think another thing just to point out too is the diversity of gold level applications that Excelsior Springs was focused on their updated park plan, but also was an excellent way to show how Excelsior Springs is really looking at all of the topic areas. And Grandview's was a specific to a comp plan. And that with Raymore, it was a specific master plan dedicated to communities for all ages that really looked at the 6 topic areas. And then with Roeland Park, as I recall, it was an age lens applied to the phased development of our park. And what really impressed the review committee was the phased of it, that was always have a UD emphasis as each of the phases took place. And then how universal design within your city is more broader than just our park. Okay, well, I think that I can say there were no questions today, but can I offer that the 4 of you who presented, that if anybody who is on this call would like to talk with you more at length or has specific questions, that they can do so. Great. Okay,